Hello, guys and gals, and welcome. So we got, what was it, the 2.1 public test realm patch notes, which, oh, it says November 19th. I thought it was coming out today, but, whatever. Let's go over the patch notes for the 2.1 public test realm, which I believe is supposed to be for Season 7 coming up. There is going to be a public test realm on December 3rd, so we'll be checking that out and like playing around with some of these changes. So these changes do not go live until the public test realm on December 3rd. Yeah. The air is crackling with magic. You can feel it in your bones, can't you? Harness this otherworldly new power in your fight against Hell's Legions, Wanderer. The 2.1 public test realm for Diablo 4 will be available from December 3rd to the 10th, offering you the chance to test upcoming changes and features releasing with the next season for the base game, along with some Vessel of Hatred updates. The purpose of the PTR is to test updates and features before the launch of Season 7, and then using your feedback, we'll be able to make some adjustments before the patch goes live for everyone. The feedback we receive helps us fine-tune and balance the game, yada, yada, yada. The Armory. So they're going to be adding, finally, a loadout system, which is super late, but, welcome nonetheless, which is going to involve setting up multiple loadouts for your characters. So now you don't have to have multiple characters. You can actually have multiple loadouts for the same characters, which will be really nice. And as you can see, you can set up all the equipment, the skills, the Paragon nodes, etc. So you can have like a lightning, fire, ice, etc. builds. So in this case, like for instance, this season I had 4 Spiritborns. I wouldn't necessarily need 4 Spiritborns. I could just have 1 Spiritborn and have like 4 different loadouts or 5 different loadouts for those characters. So, yeah. The Armory gives you the option to save, load, and name your favorite builds. Armory loadouts slots are character bound. 5 loadout slots per character. At a glance from your loadout, you'll be able to view the equipment skills, selected Paragon nodes, and glyphs that make up your save build. Note, changing between loadout slots with differing Paragon loadouts does not cost gold. Start by selecting an empty slot and save your build to begin. Saving your loadout will capture the following: equipped items, Paragon board, and glyphs, skill selections, and class mechanic. The Armory can be accessed across each major city and sanctuary and endgame hubs such as Citadel, Tree of Whispers, and Training Grounds, and Kyovashad. If an item is saved in your Armory loadout is no longer available, whether from selling, trading, or salvaging, an icon will indicate that the item is missing on the loadout preview. New powers of witchcraft. So for Season 7, they're going to be going with witchcraft powers. There are 3 schools of Hawazar sorcery to learn and master. Eldritch, wield magic that harnesses destructive energies and polymorphy. Psyche, wield defensive powers of the mind and spirit to create visions, focus your attacks, and induce madness in your enemies. Growth and Decay, wield magic that both heals and harms, boosting life resource. And these incantations can create horrific diseases and disruptions. Plus, discover rare lost powers of witchcrafts that have since been rediscovered. Each school of witchcraft gives you the chance to experiment between new styles of power, tinker with your build to create something strange and terrible. Some witchcraft powers are also witchcraft effects, which apply as Eldritch, Psyche, and Growth Decay powers. So I have an example of one here. An ominous orb of pure Eldritch energy circles around you, damaging any enemy it touches for 3,000 fire damage. Doom Orb may launch itself at distant enemies before returning. At rank 5, kills or damage to bosses empower the orb by 5%. After 100%, the orb explodes, dealing 6,000 damage to nearby enemies before reforming 3 seconds later. To learn Witchcraft, earn a seasonal reputation from completing new Whisper bounties and defeating hulking head-rotten enemies to earn Restless Rot. At specific tiers, you'll unlock the ability to learn more Witchcraft powers. Visit a Coven's altar at the Tree of Whispers and offer a Restless Rot in exchange for new Witchcraft powers or to upgrade them. Note that any Witchcraft powers listed below are subject to change before the public test realm begins. Eldritch powers, Firebat Servants. A deadly swarm of firebats swarm an enemy every 2 seconds, inflicting X total fire damage over 1 attack. At higher ranks, enemies are stunned for 3 seconds after being hit by 5 times by your Firebat Servants. Abyssal Resonance. Every 250 resource spent releases an explosion, dealing X shadow damage. Each explosion triggered within 10 seconds of the last increases the size and damage by 130%, stacking up to 3 times. At rank 10, the third explosion pulls enemies towards you before detonating. Wave of Woe. Release a Wave of Woe when damaging an enemy with your skills. Wave of Woe deals an additional shadow damage and echoes this damage to all other nearby enemies of the same type. At rank 5, damage is increased by 15% each time it's echoed and is guaranteed to echo at least 5 times. May strike the same target multiple times. Purging Touch. Eldritch effects increase damage against Head Rotten. At rank 10, this damage bonus now extends to all monsters. Shaken Soul. Eldritch applies vulnerable to enemies for X seconds. At rank 10, damage from Psyche and Growth Decay effects will also apply vulnerable at half duration. Hex of Flames. Lucky hit. You have up to a blank chance to apply Hex of Flames. Hex of Flames deals 1,600 additional fire damage each time you deal damage to the target. At rank 7, Hex of Flames explodes, dealing damage to all nearby enemies when you land a critical strike. The Doom Orb, which we just read, that's the one with the Eldritch energy that circles around you. Psyche Powers, Lifelink. Automatically link your life force with up to 3 nearby enemies. X of the damage you take is shared with the linked targets as physical damage. Cannot lifelink to enemy players. For 10 seconds after using a defensive, macabre, or subterfuge skill, any linked damage will be guaranteed critical strike. Hex of Shattering. Damage done by your witchcraft effects afflicts enemies with Hex of Shattering, causing them to deal X reduced damage for 5 seconds. When any Hex is applied to the Head Rotten, all damage will be guaranteed critical strikes for 5 seconds. Aura of Misfortune. Enemies near you have a blank chance for their attacks to be interrupted. Does not work on bosses. At rank 5, Aura of Misfortune increases your movement speed by 5% and slows enemies by 30. Aura of Lament. When you first strike an enemy, it is inflicted with the Aura of Lament that slows it and other nearby enemies by 70%. For each enemy inside the Aura of Lament, you gain 1 primary resource each second, and if the initial enemy dies, Aura of Lament is passed on to another enemy, retaining the duration. Last blank seconds, only 1 enemy may be afflicted at a time. May only occur every 30 seconds. Vengeful Spirit. Every 19 seconds, a Vengeful Spirit Servant appears for X seconds. While active, all damage taken is instead taken by the Spirit. At rank 5, when the Vengeful Spirit's life is fully depleted, it rushes towards up to 8 enemies, dealing shadow damage. Twilight Warding. Gain a barrier for 5 seconds, absorbing 100 damage. At rank 12, Warding reflects enemy projectiles while active. Growth and Decay powers. Poison Frog Servant. Summon a Poison Frog Servant that attacks and poisons enemies for X damage over 3 seconds. On death, the frog explodes violently, dealing X poison instantly to damage to nearby enemies. This explosion will always critically strike. At rank 5, Poison Frog attacks will pull enemies toward itself and taunt enemies for 1 second. Soul Harvest. Feed upon the life force of nearby enemies whenever you use a skill with a cooldown, increasing your primary stat by 3% per monster for 8 seconds, or for X seconds. Rank 9, Soul Harvest does not lose duration so long as the enemies are nearby. Hex of Whispers. Dealing damage to an enemy afflicts them with Hex of Whispers that deals X shadow damage to the next time damage is dealt. Afterwards, Hex of Whispers will jump to another enemy up to a maximum of 6 times. Hex of Whispers may only be applied once every 5 seconds. At rank 7, after bouncing onto 6 enemies, the Hex bounces back to you, granting Fortify and removing all crowd control and negative status effects. Decay Augmentation. Your witchcraft effects deal X of the damage dealt over 5 seconds. The damage type is based on your class. At rank 10, when your damage over time effects exceed 85% of the target's total life, they immediately die. Grow. After casting an ultimate skill, your servants, minions, and companions are empowered with dark magics, growing larger in size and dealing bonus damage lasting for 15 seconds. Wow, that's kind of cool. At rank 11, your servants, minions, and companions gain 100% critical strike chance while enlarged. Ooh, okay. Big old werewolves or something, or like skeletons, or... That sounds really cool. Aura of Siphoning. Conjure an Aura of Decay that deals X poison damage to enemies every second. At rank 10, each time the Aura of Siphoning deals damage, you are healed for 1% of your maximum life. The Cycle. Dealing any damage with your skills has a 15% chance to grow a flower from the ground. When the enemy is near, the flower deals poison damage to that enemy over 5 seconds, and if an ally is near, the flower heals them for 6% maximum life. The flower withers away after use, and a flower may grow once every 5 seconds per enemy. The damage and healing affects all enemies or allies near the flower. Lost Powers. Breath of the Coven. Dealing damage or applying a crowd control effect with any of your witchcraft effects increases your attack speed by 10% for 10 seconds, by blank percent for 10 seconds, stacking once per unique witchcraft effect. Witchcraft effects are Eldritch, Psyche, and Growth and Decay. At rank 8, gain 40% lucky hit chance while bonuses from all 3 are active at once. Or 4, rather. Hex of Specialization. Increase the potency of your hex effects by X. At rank 10, increase the critical strike chance by 10% against enemies afflicted by your hexes. Aura of Specialization. The size of your aura effects is increased by blank. At rank 10, increases the critical strike damage by 50% against enemies inside your aura effects. Piranha-nado. Piranhado. It's like literally a piranha tornado. When an enemy is afflicted by both hex and aura effects, a Piranhado is summoned, pulling enemies toward it and dealing physical damage over 12 seconds. May occur once every 20 seconds. At rank 5, Piranhado moves itself toward nearby enemies. Hunt of the Head Rotten. The Head Rotten are the new gruesome enemies to face across Sanctuary, sick in the mind and spirit. Strike them down to release them from their prison of twisted flesh. The Head Rotten are powerful foes. Hunt them within the Head Hunt zone. Subzone. The Tree of Whispers will offer bounties to hunt the Head Rotten, and there are unique bosses variants of the Head Rotten to slay, which includes the Headless Husk and Fugitive Head. A Fugitive Head has a parasitic stolen head attached, which is extremely rare to find. If you manage to defeat them, the reclaimed head drops for you to return to Goldeneye near the Tree of Whispers for occult gems. While the Head Rotten will earn you Restless Rot, return to the fugitive heads to the Tree of Whispers will grant you occult gems. The tree has turned its gaze on this land, bent on finding its stolen heads. Heed the whisper and clear away the rot to draw the heads out of hiding. Discover newly intensified whispers of the dead to guide you toward headhunts. Headhunts will give you a general area where you might be able to flush out a headless husk or a fugitive head. After completing a whisper in the headhunt subzone, locate the exposed roots that appear. This is a rare chance for the exposed root to be uprooted cocoon, which holds a headless husk or fugitive head to defeat. These can be activated in multiple spots across Sanctuary one at a time. These areas shift after a duration of time, similar to HellTide. Return your Grim Phasers at the Raven found in the Headhunt subzones. They added these, like, you don't have to go back to the tree. You can just, like, turn in the whispers here. There will be a few ways to improve your chances to see a Head Rot possession by Fugitive Head, increased by Torment Tier, and by using a Draught of Whispers. Root Holes. Seek out these micro-dungeons as an additional way to hunt Head Rotten with bonus challenges and rewards. Perform dangerous rituals to turn Head Rot into power. Root Holes are only accessible by using Whisperwood sigils found in Whisper caches and silent chests. One of these can be found in the Fractured Peaks in the PTR. Occult gems. So these are what they were talking about. They're apparently going to give you armor and resistances to make up for taking up your diamond or your skull slot. And you got the Elder Sigil. Can be asserted into equipment with sockets. Occult gems are unique. Your Agility, Corpse Incarnate, Mastery, Weapon Mastery, and Wrath skills deal 25% increased direct damage to hexed enemies. While you have 3 or more Eldritch Witch power slotted, gain 25% movement speed and 15% critical strike chance. And this one is for each of your auras and hexes an enemy is afflicted by. They take 4% increased damage from you. If you manage to slay a Head Rotten possessed by fugitive heads, you'll be able to use this reclaimed head at the Tree of Whispers to earn occult gems. These powerful seasonal sockables are craftable. Crafted, meet with Galena in the Tree of Whispers, who crafts occult gems in exchange for fugitive heads, restless rot, and gem fragments. These can provide additional affixes, strongly complement witchcraft powers, add witchcraft tags to your skills, and more. It is rumored occult gems had once even been used to cheat death, if you believe the legend. You can craft powerful higher tiers of the occult gems with the following materials: fugitive heads, restless rot, gem dust, and occult gems. We got a list of them here. So Wicked Pack, your non-unique Eldritch powers gain 25% potency. Heart of Anima, your non-unique Psyche powers gain 25% potency. Same thing for Growth and Decay. You deal 40% more overpower damage to hexed enemies. That's the one we just read with the increased damage while using those skills to a hexed enemy. Which ones are the new ones? While you have 3 or more Eldritch Witch powers slotted, every 5 seconds the next core skill you cast gains the Eldritch tag. Raging Enigma, your unique witchcraft powers deal 40% more damage. Voice of the Stars, while you have an aura active, your ultimate skills gain each Grimoire tag and deal 10% more damage. Mind Wreath, while you have 3 or more Psyche Witch powers slotted, your defensive, macabre, and trap skills gain 20% cooldown reduction. Spiral Coin, while you have 3 or more Psyche or Witch power slotted, gain 30% control duration and 20% lucky hit chance. Cornucopia, while you have 3 or more Growth Decay Witch power slotted, you generate 30% more barrier, gain 30% more fortify, and have 30% more thorns. Good one for the thorns builds. Vulture Talon, while you have an aura active, you deal damage over time 35% faster. Pointed Finger, your summons deal 25% more direct damage to hexed enemies. Vile Phylactery, while you have Witch Power with Summon tag slotted, it would take the fatal damage instead, prevent that damage, then gain a barrier equal to 100% of your maximum life and disable your witchcraft powers with the summon tag for 6 seconds. This can only occur once every 75 seconds. Friend of the Bog, while you have 3 or more Growth and Decay Witch power slotted, you gain 10% primary stat and 10% maximum life, and you are always unhindered. Moonlight, for each rank in your slotted unique witchcraft power, you gain 3% damage reduction and 1% maximum resistance to all elements. Duststone, for each of your auras, hexes, an enemy is afflicted by, they take 4% increased damage from you. Hungering Void, while you have an aura active, pull nearby enemies towards you every 8 seconds. We also have some new runes here. So the new runes are coming for 2.1 PTR. They're going to be testing them out, so we'll have to check them out. There's the, I mean, they have some of the pictures here, but let's go over the ones down here, because we got a whole list. New ritual runes. The Nagu legendary rune, 100 offering generated. Maintain at least 1 summon for 5 seconds, up to 6 summons maximum. So this one is going to be specifically for summon characters, like necromancers, druids, maybe sorceress. I don't know if it applies to the little things that they call summons, the familiars. Igni legendary rune, 25 offering generated. Stores offering every 0.3 seconds. Casts a non-basic skill to gain the stored offering, up to 500 offering. So, but this one is doing is it's kind of giving you the ability to apply like overflow onto your characters, which is going to be really cool. New rune of invocation, the Chalk rune. Chalk rare rune costs 20 offering. 220% weapon damage. Invoke druid's lightning bolts striking nearby enemies. Overflow spawn more lightning bolts. This one's going to be a really big one, I can already tell, especially since they set the offering so low at 20. It's going to be one that people are going to overflow into, and you're going to get a lot of lightning bolts spawning all at the same time, which is going to be really nice. You could probably also use this on like a lightning sorceress, any lightning druid, probably to get additional damage. Just if you're scaling any kind of lightning damage, it's going to help. And really, I think the big thing on this one is the overflow, because it's going to make it like just rain lightning bolts down. We'll see. New legendary aspects and unique items. Powerful unique items and legendary aspects arrive to enhance your renowned demon crushing prowess. Barbarian, the Mantle of the Mountain's Fury unique chest armor. Inherent 50% damage, Hammer of the Ancients damage for 5 seconds after an earthquake explodes. 200 to 350 armor, 3 to 5 skill ranks to Hammer of the Ancients. 2 to 3 skill ranks of defensive stance. 13.5 to 22.5% chance for earthquake to deal double damage. Power. Hammer of the Ancients also forms a seismic line that deals its damage and slows enemies hit by 60 to 80% for 4 seconds. Earthquakes it passes through explode for their total damage and are consumed. That's pretty amazing. Khan was talking about that the other day. Of Incendiary Fissures, legendary aspect, your earthquakes deal 35 to 50% increased damage, and their damage is converted into fire. Druid Malefic Crescent unique armor. 25% resist to all elements, 10% willpower, 200% werewolf critical strike damage. 12.5% movement speed while shapeshifted into a werewolf, and 2 ranks of feral aptitude, which I think feral aptitude was the one that was specifically for werewolves. It's werewolf damage while healthy. The value of your lupine ferocity consecutive critical strike damage is increased by 150% times against enemies when consecutively critically striking. Of Wolf's Rain legendary aspect, casting Hurricane also spawns smaller hurricanes on your wolves. They talked about that one in the campfire chat for 8 seconds, and these hurricanes deal 15% of the hurricane's damage for each active wolf. Of Electrified Claws legendary aspect, shapeshifting into a new animal form causes Lightning Bolt to strike a nearby enemy, dealing lightning damage. Your Lightning Bolts deal 40% increased damage for 2 seconds. So every time you shapeshift, you just get a lightning bolt, like a lightning bolt just strikes something. That's kind of cool. That's really neat for a build that might be set up on like shapeshifting back and forth between multiple farms. Necromancer Indira's Memory Unique Pants. Casting Bone Spear reduces Blood Wave's cooldown by 2 seconds, 25% maximum life, overpower damage, 27.5% damage reduction while injured, 3 ranks to ranks of Tides of Blood. That's the passive. Blood Wave is additionally a bone skill that spawns Bone Prison at its end point. They showed us this one in the campfire too. Increases your blood skill damage by 80% for 8 seconds when cast. A Bone Spear is additionally a blood skill and will drain 10% maximum life each cast after hitting an enemy and consume a surrounding corpse and launch 1 new Bone Spear from it. It's super powerful. Kesime's Legacy Unique Pants. Inherent casting Blood Wave fortifies you for 70% of your maximum life. 300% ultimate damage, 14.5% damage reduction while fortified, 25% Blood Wave cooldown reduction, 25% chance for Blood Wave to deal double damage. Power Blood Wave now forms a wave on each side of you. I saw this on the campfire too. It was pretty cool. Both waves converge at your feet, pulling in surrounding enemies and exploding for X damage. Each time an enemy is hit, by the way, they take 5 to 10% increased damage from your Blood Waves, up to 300% in total. Of Distilled Anima legendary aspect. While Soul Rift is active, you are unhindered and gain 1% increased movement speed per absorbed soul up to 60%. This lasts for 5 seconds after Soul Rift ends. Bone Duster's legendary aspect. Bone Spear is guaranteed to critically strike enemies with within Bone Prison and deals 40% increased damage to them. Rogue Assassin's Stride Unique Boots. An inherent after casting mobility skills, 100% movement speed for 2 seconds, 40% increased shadow resistance, 15% mobility cooldown, 1 to 2 ranks of mobility skills, 3 ranks to shadow imbuement. Mobility skills are always shadow imbued with 80% increased potency. Lucky hit, damaging an elite or boss with a mobility skill has an 80% chance to instantly trigger a free shadow imbuement explosion. They showed these two and they looked absolutely amazing. I was kind of excited about those because I like the imbuments. Slice and Dice legendary aspect. Twisting Blades initial hit cleaves. Twisting Blades returns 45% faster. Bitter Infection legendary aspect. Enemies infected by the Shadow Imbuement take 50% increase of its damage every second. Shadow Imbuement deals 50% times increased damage. Sorceress. Strike of Stormhorn unique focus. Now they did show us some of these uniques. I actually got like pictures of them, but we'll go over them. Inherent chance for ball lightning projectiles to cast twice is now chance to cast super ball lightning. 74.5% critical strike damage, 250% ball lightning projectile speed, which is really cool. 2 ranks to ball lightning, and 17.2% chance for ball lightning projectiles to cast twice. Power ball lightning splashes on contact to 100% times increased damage and stunning enemies for 1 second if it reaches its maximum range. Super ball lightnings are larger, deal 100% more damage, and have a higher lucky hit chance, and its stun duration is increased to 3 seconds. This one is really cool. Basically, when you shoot the ball lightning, it goes much quicker. It's larger. It actually hits the target with like an impact and causes like a backward, sort of like splash off of the target, which hits more monsters, which is really cool. Then they have another one, which is Okun's Catalyst Unique Focus, which is ball lightning can be cast while moving. 32% attack speed for 5 seconds after casting a defensive skill. 1.1% damage reduction for each active ball lightning. 2 ranks of ball lightning, and another 17.3% chance for ball lightning projectiles cast twice. This one, however, is ball lightning orbits around you, creating a static field that damages all enemies within for 180% of ball lightning's damage per active ball, and grants unhindered while the field is active. Of Mind's Awakening legendary aspect, casting a pyromancy skill immobilizes enemies hit for 1 second, and casting a shock skill grants a burst of movement speed, 30%. For 1 second, and casting a frost skill gains 6% maximum life barrier. While enlightened, each skill grants all benefits. So it's just another one that's going to take advantage of that Enlightenment key passive. Spiritborn. Sustained War Crozier Unique Quarterstaff. Another unique weapon. 40% block chance, 150 dexterity, 680 maximum life. All pretty simple. 30% chance for potency skills to deal double damage. That could be interesting. I was actually considering making an entire build around the Devourer, which is an ultimate. And he actually does have a potency tag that can be added to him. Could be really interesting to try and set up a Devourer build where you just like have like a really, really strong Devourer. And of course, you could also run another potency skill in combination with it. There's several potency skills. You have obviously access to Touch of Death, which would synergize well with the Devourer. You could also potentially utilize Razor Wings, Rushing Claw, which actually synergizes well with Toxic Skin, which also synergizes well with the Devourer. Or you could run, what's the last one? Payback. So it gives you plus 2 to 4 ranks to focus skills, which is going to be really nice for high focus skills. That'll help with Toxic Skin. Your focus skills benefit from all their upgrades, and they increase the damage of your potency skills by 20% for 8 seconds up to 200. Okay. So that means I can already see a build there. Set up for the Devourer, and maybe like Touch of Death or Rushing Claw, and you run Toxic Skin. You utilize this weapon. That could be like absolutely insane. That looks like fun. Endless Talons Legendary Aspect. Razor Wings. Hitting an enemy increases your Eagle skills damage by 1% times for 3 seconds up to 50% times. Razor Wings critical strikes grant 3 stacks. The Tree of Whisper grows. Of the phantom souls that toil around the Tree of Whispers, more of their haunted ranks have joined the hallowed grounds. The vendors around the Tree of Whispers have been rearranged. They showed this during the campfire. They basically just kind of like rearranged the entire Tree of Whispers area and added more vendors so that the Tree of Whispers area is a more effective town as opposed to just kind of like a odd little smattering of things, but not really everything that you needed. Features offered for testing. We will have servers for PTR in our largest regions, and using account copy, you'll be able to PTR boost to aid you in public test realm. Apparently, they're going to set it up so we can account copy at any time, so it will just instantly copy our account as it is online. However, it will delete all the characters in progress that you have on PTR when you copy the account, because it's the whole account. PTR Boost, here's what's been added to the PTR Boost NPC. Season 7 uniques have been added. Spiritborn unique items have been added. Boost now also includes items and benefits for Spiritborn characters. If you own the Vessel of Hatred, access to the new runes. You'll additionally be able to select the following options from PTR Boost NPC, granting all witchcraft powers, grant seasonal progression items, grant the occult gems. There's also an option at the Boost NPC that offers all the above and the following feature, like level to max, complete map, the whole 9 yards. Providing feedback, installing PTR. If you guys have never installed PTR before, it's super duper easy. I will go over it with you right now. So if you go to your BattleNet launcher and you click on Diablo 4, and then you click here, see this little drop down right here? You click on this little drop down, and you see how it says Public Test Realm. So you're going to click on the Public Test Realm, and then you can basically download and install the new Public Test Realm that way. If you want to go back to the live game, you just click here and go back to the live game. It's super duper easy. There's really not much to it. I don't believe it works for like most of the consoles anyway. I think they set up here like something about the consoles. Regions, yeah, consoles don't work, but they did say it's going to be available in North America, Europe, Korea, Japan, South America, and Australia. 2.1 PTR patch notes. All that, and we haven't even gone over the patch notes yet. So let's go over the patch notes. Aspect of Endless Talons. These are new items. We already went over all the new items, so we're going to skip the new items and the new runes. Balance updates. Enhanced Thunder Spike, Vigor increased from 5 to 7. Accelerated Thunder Spike, vulnerable duration increased from 2 to 3 seconds. Sharp Thrash, Ferocity increased from 1 to 2. Stinger, damage increased from 70 to 77%. Enhanced Stinger, damage increased from 50 to 60% of its base damage. Concussive Stomp, damage increased from 40 to 50. Enhanced Concussive Stomp, maximum barrier increased from 30 to 40% of your maximum life. Invasive Payback, cooldown reduced from 15 to 8 seconds. Touch of Death, swarms now ignores invulnerable enemies. Razor wings, max of active razor rings increased from 12 to 15 maximum wings. Endurance, vigor generated increased from 15 to 30. Velocity, previous, if you dealt damage within the last 5 seconds that are moving, you generate 3 vigor per second. Now generate 3 vigor per second while moving. Bastion, thorns increased from 120 to 360. Big buff there for the thorns characters. Acceleration, previous, gain 3 additional evade charges after you evade. Your next skill deals 30% increased damage. Now gain 1 additional evade charge after you evade. Your eagle skills deal 24% increased damage. So you can no longer gain additional charges by putting more points into it, and they also reduce the damage by 6%. So big nerf there. Also, huge nerf there, too. Wow. They just nerfed the crap out of acceleration, didn't they? Because it used to be after you evade, your next skill deals damage. Now it's just your eagle skills deal increased damage for 2 seconds, which is nothing. So you better be like firing off your next skill within 2 seconds. Otherwise, you're not going to get any damage bonus out of that at all. Auspicious, delay to gain barrier after taking damage reduced from 5 to 2 seconds. The Protector, rank 5, the Protector's domain pulses 100% of your thorns as physical damage to enemies within every second. That's pretty cool. The Seeker, rank 5, the Seeker's damage is increased by 50% of your critical strike damage and vulnerable bonuses. So they talked about this. They're going to be adding a rank 5 bonus to all the ultimates to make them feel more powerful if you invest in them. The Hunter, rank 5, the Hunter's initial damage will execute injured non-boss enemies. Devourer, the rank 5 Devourer's damage is increased by 150% of your healing received bonus. Ooh, that's an interesting way to push that. Spirit Hall, Centipede primary Spirit Hall. Previous, hitting an enemy with Centipede skill reduces their damage by 2.5%, slows them by 10% for 3 seconds, stacking up to a maximum of 8 times. All skills are now Centipede skills. Now, hitting an enemy with Centipede skills reduces their damage by 2%, slows them by 10%, and deals 70% poisoning damage over 6 seconds, stacking up to a maximum of 8 times. All skills are now Centipede skills. Wow, okay. So you get a 70% poisoning damage over 6 seconds, which stacks. So that is beautiful. That makes the Centipede primary Spirit Hall a lot more attractive. Eagle secondary Spirit Hall, delay before the bonus is reset increased from 2 to 4 seconds. Tempering recipes, chance for raising projectiles to cast twice with chance for razor wings to deal double damage. Brilliance skill ranks removed. Spirit Resolve, Born Resolve defensive recipe. Maximum resolve stacks replaced with armor plus percentage. So they just took maximum resolve stacks out entirely? Okay. All right. Soil augments weapon recipe. Chance for the touch of death swarms to reinfect on a hit, replaced with increase of touch death duration. Centipede innovation utility recipe. Touch of death swarm duration removed. Legendary aspects. Bristlebass aspect increased from 160 to 200%. That's a good change. Ruthless aspect, additional functionality now always grants Jaguar skills 15% critical strike chance. Aspect of layered wards, block damage reduction increased from 30% to 40%. Aspect of reactive armor, blocked attacks no longer have to come from a close enemy. Sticker Thought aspect no longer drops for the Spiritborn as they do not have channeled skills. Aspect of Rallying Reversal, aspect category change from offensive to utility. Oh, that's interesting. That's a pretty big buff for it because utilities are much easier to utilize than offensives. Aspect of Exhilaration no longer requires enemies to be vulnerable for its effect to activate. Lucky hit bonus per stack of ferocity increased from 3 to 5. Aspect of Pestilence. Pestilence swarm duration increased from 1.5 to 3 seconds. Additional swarm duration reduced from 100% to 50, increasing the swarm duration from 3 to 4.5 seconds. So they increased the base to 3 and then reduced the increase on the aspect, which is fine because it's still increasing it more than it was before, which brings the swarm duration up to 4.5 seconds total, which is a hell of a lot better than what it was before. Aspect of Tenacity, you gain resolve for each 10 vigor you gain over 100. Now you gain resolve for each 20 vigor you gain while at maximum vigor. This resolve can overfill your maximum resolve stacks by 5. That's pretty powerful. Aspect of Binding Morass. They increased the damage by 10%, but also added a variance. Aspect of deflection, invasive razor wings upgrades now causes reflected razor wings to spiral outwards. This was a big bug with the deflection and the counterattack. So now that now that you have this fixed, this aspect becomes better now, because now your counterattack razor wings will start spiraling, which is really good. Unique items, Scorn of the Earth Boots, effects reduce evades cooldowns, now affect Soar's evade override. Soar deals damage based on distance traveled from 275 to 425. Soar grants maximum life as barrier replaced with lightning resistance. Bonus Soar damage, that's a big nerf. Increased from 50 to 100 times. Band of First Breath Unique Ring. Lucky hit chance while you have a barrier replaced with critical strike chance. Bonus damage after gaining Resolve replaced with resource generated when losing Resolve. Ranks to Auspicious replaced with maximum Resolve stacks. Previous casting Evade consumes 1 stack of Resolve to generate 40 Vigor. Gained Armored Hide passive. Now casting Evade consumes 1 stack of Resolve to increase your damage dealt by 40% of times for 5 seconds and gain Armored Hide's passive effect. Wude Nakpa Unique Glaive. Casting an ultimate skill restores primary resource replaced with maximum life. Really nice. Primary Spirit Hall potency increased from 50 to 100% to 100 to 200%. Big buff. Big Chongus buff there. Like, holy Jesus, that's huge. I mean, Wuxie Nakpa was already good, but now it's just going to be even more amazing. That is insane. Ring of the Writhing Moon unique update. Ranks of Unrestrained Power replaced for chance for Pestilent Swarms to deal double damage. Pestilent Swarms damage increased from 65% to 120. Delay between spawning Pestilent Swarms decreased from 10 to 4 seconds. Pestilent Swarm duration increased from 1.5 to 3 seconds. Vigor generated when Pestilent Swarm hits an enemy increased from 1 to 3. Rod of Kepeleke unique Quarterstaff. Ranks of Velocity replaced with ranks of Vigorous. That's a buff. No longer reduces core skill damage dealt by up to 30%. Bonus critical strike damage for each point of vigor consumed reduced from 3% to 0.5%. Pretty big nerf there. It'll still be powerful, but it's been nerfed. Jacinth Shell, life on hit replaced with armor percentage. Remaining cooldown duration reduction reduced from 3 to 2 seconds. Spending vigor healing increased from 10% to 1 to 10 to 5 to 10. Paragon Hubris Glyph, maximum thorns increased from 2,000 to 3,000. Big buff for the thorns builds. Spiny Skin Legendary Node increased from 20 to 35%. Big buff for thorns builds. My thorn character might be absolutely insane now, actually. I've already got him like built and he works just fine. And with these changes, I think he's easily pushing like 100 pits at this point. Bitter Medicine Legendary Node. Previous, when you heal for 100% of your maximum life, deal 20% damage to close enemies. This damage is increased by your healing received bonus. Now, when you heal for 100% of your maximum life, afflict close enemies, dealing 200% poisoning damage and causing them to take 10% times increased poisoning damage for 6 seconds, up to 40%. That looks amazing. I can see a really fun poison build forming in my head already, with all these like weird changes, like to the potency skills, like the toxic skin focus stuff, like affecting the focus potency skills and stuff like that. This looks really neat. I'm actually kind of excited about this now. Mercenaries bartering caches. Crafting material cache rewards now scale with torment tiers. Cache will now drop iron and rawhide. Boss material cache gold now scales with torment tiers. Masterworking cache obdusite and opals now scale with torment tiers. Augment cache gems now scale with torment tiers. Runes are now guaranteed to drop in torment difficulties, and amount scales with torment tiers. Rapport track caches, masterworking, obdusite increased from 30 to 100. Local mercenary events rewards have been adjusted to be more in line with other events. Increase the amount of pale marks earned. Runes knock can now gain half of the offering when inflicting a slow or chill. Seer offering increased from 50 to 300. Previous cast the same non-channel skill 3 times. Now cast 5 skills that then become exhausted for 3 seconds. Hidden name changed from grinding to lethargic. Interesting. Seer was basically useless. Like some people like fell into the trap of the Seer rune, with the whole like casting the same non-channel skill 3 times in a row. But like it was just a awful rune, and it basically gave you like nothing by comparison to what a lot of the other runes did. And anybody who was using it was honestly shooting themselves in the foot. So it's good that they're changing that. Monai, hidden name changed from Harmonic to Alcridity, changed to cast 2 mobility or macabre skills, offering increase from 35 to 100. Invocation runes, Se, Summon Spirit Wolf now benefits from summon and companion bonuses. That's really cool. Are you kidding me? That's amazing. So the Summon Spirit Wolves will now gain your summon and companion bonuses on your Druid and your Necromancer? I like that. Qua rune movement speed increased by 7% up to 10%, changed from rare to magic, up to 50% total. Zek rune cooldown reduction given reduced 2 to 1. Cost reduced from 200 to 100. Cooldown reduced from 2 to 1 seconds. Cooldown reduction, okay. I mean, that's a pretty big buff across the board, so. Vex rune 150 offering +1 to skills for 10 seconds. Overflow more skill ranks up to 3. Increase the cooldown from 1 to 5 seconds to avoid overriding overflow bonuses. Zan offering cost reduced from 800 to 700. Overflow cast increases time by 1% per 10 offering. Jaw offering reduced from 400 to 250, so more teleports. Overflow store excess offering. Interesting. Yam overflow increased stun duration. Teb hidden damage bonus reduced from 300% to baseline 100. Overflow increased damage by 1% per offering. That's pretty nice. Zalrune offering increased from 200 to 300. Previous overflow increased duration. Now overflow gain more maximum life. Increase the cooldown from 1 to 3 seconds to avoid overriding overflow bonuses. Tizik offering cost reduced from 250 to 200. Overflow increased damage by 1% per offering. Cry overflow increased size. Tech overflow offering reduced from 100 to 50. Damage increased from 700 to 1400%. Wow. Overflow updated from 100% increased radius to 100% increased size. Ton offering cost reduced from 100 to 25. Now drops 1 stun grenade. So they did this for overflow purposes, because now if it only costs 25 for 1 stun grenade, that means as much as you put into it is going to generate as many stun grenades as you possibly can. So 100 is 4 grenades, 200 is 8 grenades, and so forth and so on. Talrune offering reduced from 100 to 30 offering, and now spawns 1 Pestilent Swarm. Same thing. So 30 is 1 Pestilent Swarm, but 90 is 3, and so forth and so on. So that'll be really nice too. Watt overflow increased duration. Zol updated tooltips on runes that cast player skills to be more clear with the Zol rune effect. Basically, the Zol rune only worked with skills. It didn't work with things that weren't skills. So like earthquakes from the Barbarian, that's not a skill. Like the Barbarian doesn't have that. That's like an aspect effect. So it didn't count as a skill. But like Decrepify is a skill. Or, the Cry rune, which gives you the Vortex, that's a skill. And so forth and so on. Miscellaneous, the chance for runes to be legendary rare from defeating tormented bosses has been updated. Bug fixes. Ooh, I bet you the Spiritborn's got about 10,000 bug fixes here. Oh, God. Spiritborn fixed an issue where the damage resistance aura could be removed by activating Mystic Circles with the aspect of soul power. Leon pointed that one out. Fixed an issue where tooltips for Bristling Vengeance did not show the correct amount of thorns applied by payback. Fixed an issue where replenishing Ravager spent 5 stacks instead of 4 and would not stack multiple hits on the same elite enemy. Fixed an issue where the health drain effect of Jacinthe Shell did not trigger from Rushing Claw or Razor Wings. Fixed an issue where non-damaging abilities could consume the buff from Enhanced Vortex. Fixed an issue where the Rod of Kepeleke could provide stacks toward Crown of Lucian or Banish Lord's Talisman without costing anything. Fixed an issue where the damage increase from Viscous Shield was calculated incorrectly and was granting far more increased damage than intended. So there you go, boys. Viscous Shield is off the menu. I mean, it's still going to be a useful ability. It gives you a 30 times multiplier. I mean, there's that. But other than that, it's not going to be like the crazy scaling, broken craziness that it was before. Fixed an issue where the critical strike damage bonus from aspect of redirected force could be much higher than intended. Fixed an issue where extra damage from Ravager, the primary Gorilla Spirit Hall upgrade, and the dominant passive could trigger off, making enemies vulnerable. Fixed an issue where Quill Volley's feathers that hit a wall could not return to the player when using rebounding aspect. Crest Undercity fixed an issue where the Tribute of Ascendance and Tribute of Refinement did not properly grant their respective rewards in specific scenarios. Fixed an issue where the Tribute of Radiance did not properly grant ancestral legendary items in certain scenarios. Fixed an issue where the Torment only tributes could be accessed in lower difficulties. Fixed an issue where the large gold values did not display properly in Bargain's UI. Dark Citadel fixed an issue where the rare and magic items weren't always auto-salvaging as expected. Fixed an issue where the Dark Citadel did not function for the Party Finder quick list. Runes fixed an issue where the teleport from the Jaw rune did not grant Unstoppable. Fixed an issue where the damage increase from the Cax rune could be increased by 200% instead of 100%. Mercenaries fixed an issue where each attack from the Iron Maelstrom triggered reinforcements. Fixed an issue where Rahir's reinforcement opportunity that cast when the player is hit, the control parry effect did not function properly. Miscellaneous fixed an issue where the Fields of Giants Delver challenge couldn't be unlocked. Fixed an issue where the Scroll of Abundance restored 30% of base life instead of 30% of max life. Fixed an issue where the Fog of War Nahatu was removed after using the Vessel of Hatred campaign skip. Fixed an issue where the Dweller in the Dark Enemy in Kichuk Stronghold would become unkillable after being staggered. Fixed an issue where the Echo of Hatred dungeon was not available for a quick list through Party Finder. Now moving on to the base game. My horns were digging into my head. Inherent. This is the unique chest armor. Okay, so we got the new items. That's the new item we already went over. Aspect of Incendiary Fissures, offensive. Your earthquakes deal 50% increased damage and they're converted into fire. This was a really cool aspect they talked about in the campfire. Vehement Arguments, new weapon tempering recipe, ranks of Warpath, Belligerence, and Heavy Hitter. Druid, there's the new item that they already talked about. We already talked about. Aspect of Wolf's Rain, we talked about that as well. A new tempering and poison damage, werewolf attack speed, and werewolf critical strike chance. We talked about most of these already. Ranks of Fueled by Death, Ranks of Finality, and Ranks of Titanfall. That's pretty cool. And we already talked about these as well. Ultimate Efficiency Tempering Recipes. Death Trap cooldown reduction, Rain of Arrows cooldown reduction, Shadow Clone, and Energy after casting an ultimate skill. Interesting. We already talked about these as well. No reason to go back over it a second time. Prismatic Augments Tempering Recipe. Chance for Ice Blades to cast twice. This has been removed from the Conjuration Augments Tempering Recipe. Chance for Inferno to deal double damage. This has been removed from the Pyromancy Augments Tempering Recipe. Ranks to Shocking Impact. Balance updates. Barbarian. Hammer of the Ancients damage increased from 70 to 80. Hammer of the Ancients can now strike the ground areas without enemies, but will approach when a target is hovered. Furious Hammer of the Ancients. Previous Hammer of the Ancients gains 2% critical strike chance for every 10 Fury you had when cast. Its critical strikes knockdown enemies for 2 seconds. Now Hammer of the Ancients gains 3% critical strike damage and 3% critical strike chance for every 10 Fury you had when cast. Its critical strikes knock down enemies for 2 seconds. Mighty Throw, impact damage increased from 80 to 105%. Pulse damage increased from 35 to 50. Kick, skill ranks now increase kick's damage. Mighty Kick, knockdown duration increased from 2 to 4 seconds. Wrath of the Berserker, rank 5 of Wrath of the Berserker, pulls in enemies instead of knocking back and deals 200% damage to them. Call of the Ancients now has the summoning tag. New ranks 5 bonus while Call of the Ancients is active. Gain 40% movement speed bonus and 20% distant damage reduction. Prime Call of the Ancients damage bonus increased by 5%. Iron Maelstrom. Two-hand bludgeoning slam damage increased from 60 to 75%. Dual wield swing damage increased from 33 to 43%. New rank 5 bonus. Iron Maelstrom damage is increased by 80% of your damage to injured and healthy bonuses. Okay. The following skill tree upgrades, which directly deal damage, will now scale up their damage with increased skill ranks of the base skill. Enhanced Charge, Mighty Kick, Power Kick, Battle Lunging Strike, and Enhanced Rupture. Interesting. Passives. Previous, your ultimate skills deal 15% more damage. Your ultimate skills, Earthquakes and Dust Devils, deal 15% more damage. Defensive stance. Previous, increase the damage reduction gained while you're fortified by additional 2%. Now, while fortified, you gain an additional 2% damage reduction and heal for 0.5% maximum life every second. Slaying Strike, you deal 5% increased damage against injured enemies. Now you deal 5% damage to injured and healthy enemies. What's up, Pork Sniffer? Unbridled Rage. Previous, your core skills deal 45% increased damage but cost 100% more fury. Now your core skills deal 45% increased damage but cost 100% more fury. The damage is doubled against injured enemies. Wow, doubled. Walking Arsenal. Previous, dealing direct damage with two-handed bludgeoning weapons, slashing, dual-wield weapons, increased... okay. Additional 10% increased attack speed. Now dealing direct damage with two-handed bludgeoning weapons, yada, 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 grants 15% increased damage for 10 seconds. While these three bonuses are active, gain 20% crowd control duration and attack speed. Okay, pretty big buff there. Executioners, now your overpower will spawn an earthquake every 4 seconds that deals physical damage over 4 seconds. Your earthquake damage is increased by 25% for every 100 strength you have, so they put a scaler on it. That's nice. Now, Ground Stomp creates an earthquake that deals physical damage over 4 seconds. While standing in the earthquakes 4 seconds afterwards, you deal 25% increased damage, and your earthquakes deal 25% increased damage as well. That's a nice little buff. Of Bolcathos, same thing. Looks like they added your earthquakes also deal 25% increased damage, so if you're running both of those, you can get double bonus on your earthquakes. Ancestral Echoes now gives 40% summoning skill damage bonus. Ancestral Charge now gives 40% summoning skill damage bonus. Of Encroaching Wrath, after spending 100 Fury, your next weapon master brawling skills within 8 seconds. So pretty nice buff there on the seconds, and 10% increase on the damage. Of Herculean Spectacle, Mighty Throw damage increased from 35% to 45%. Unique items, Twin Strike, after casting Double Swing 4 times, your next Double Swing will hit 2 additional times, dealing 80% increased. Now it's after casting Double Swing 4 times, your next Double Swing will hit 2 additional times, each dealing 80% increased damage and stunning for 1 second. So it looks like it stayed mostly the same. They just added a stun in there. Unbroken Chain, 1 to 2 skill ranks of Pit Fighter swapped to 2 to 3 ranks of Slaying Strike. Enemy damage reduction increased from 30 to 40%. Ugly Bastard Helmet, fire bonus damage increased from 80 to 100, and inherent fire resistance increased from 50 to 100%. That's ridiculous. It was already a really good helmet, and that 20% increase in damage there is amazing. I don't care about the fire resistance. Bone Breaker Legendary Node. Every 12 seconds, your next skill is guaranteed to overpower. Now, every 12 seconds, your next skill is guaranteed to overpower, and whenever you overpower, your ultimate skills deal 10% increased damage for 10 seconds, up to 80%. Weapon Master Legendary Node. Previous swapping grants you 8% maximum fury. Now you deal 30% increased damage as well to injured and healthy enemies. Druid Hurricane can now be cast while moving. Raging Shred. Now Shred's third combo attack is larger, applies an additional poisoning damage over 5 seconds, and causes enemies to take 30% times increased poisoning damage for 5 seconds, which I really like. Innate Blood Howl. Blood Howl also generates 20 spirit, and you deal 25% increased damage until you shapeshift out of werewolf form. Grizzly Rage, damage bonus increased by 10% to 60. Lacerate, damage bonus increased to 600%, 40% bonus. And at rank 5, Lacerate will now increase damage increased by 40% of your critical strike damage bonus. Cataclysm, rank 5. Cataclysm slows surrounding enemies by 70% for 8 seconds. Petrify, rank 5. Casting Petrify resets all your non-ultimate skill cooldowns. The following skill tree upgrades which directly dealt damage will now scale up their damage with increased skill ranks of the base skill. Fierce Claw, Innate Earthen Bulwark, and Raging Shred. Passives, Lupine Ferocity. Previous, every third werewolf skill critically strikes and hits for 100% increased damage, double to 200% against injured enemies. Every third werewolf skill will now critically strike. Werewolf skills deal 75% times increased damage. Toxic Claws. Critical strikes with werewolf skills deal 12% of their base damage as poisoning over 4 seconds. Now critical strikes with Shred, Lacerate deal an additional 16% of their base damage as poisoning over 4 seconds. Oof. That's a big oof. That's a nerf. That's like a heavy, heavy, heavy nerf. That's unfortunate. I gotta stop and take that one in for a second. There's tons of poison builds that rely on Toxic Claws, and Toxic Claws makes it so that werewolf skills, deal poison damage. Well, things like Tornado can be a werewolf skill. You can have, like, a lot of storm skills can become werewolf skills through the Tempest Roar. Well, basically what they just did is they basically just killed any build that was relying on Toxic Claws that is not utilizing Shred or Lacerate, which is rather unfortunate. I'm gonna have to put some feedback in on that one and say that one needs to be reverted. That's too harsh. That kills a lot of builds, a lot of builds. Like that's a heavy build killer. Heightened senses. Previous when shapeshifting, werewolf grants 3% damage reduction, and werewolf grants 2% movement speed bonuses. They are lost after 3 seconds in human form. Now, when shapeshifting, werewolf grants 3% damage reduction and 3% movement speed. Both bonuses persist as long as you are in either animal form. They are lost after 3 seconds in human form. I guess they beefed up the movement speed a little bit. Charged atmosphere, pulse every 14 seconds, 45% damage. Now pulse every 14 seconds for 45% damage. And you get an additional 10% damage on your lightning bolts. Spirit boons. Spirit offering unlocks reduced from 100 to 60 per spirit animal. Prickle skin, gain 480 thorns. Now deal 5% increased damage to enemies for 5 seconds after they attack you. I guess that also still helps thorns, but that's weird. Deer, Gift of the Stag. Previous gained 40% 40 maximum spirit. Now gain 40 maximum spirit, and you gain 5 spirit every second. Eagle, Scythe Talon, gain 15% critical strike chance. Now gain 15% increased critical strike chance and 15 times increased lucky hit chance. Wolf Energize, lucky hit dealing damage has a 15% chance to restore 30 spirit. Now lucky hit dealing damage has a 15% chance to fully restore spirit. Wow. Snake Obsidian Slam. Every 10th kill causes your next Earth skill to overpower. This was always horrible, and even when they buffed it, it was still horrible. Now every 6th attack cast will cause your next Earth skill to overpower. That is way better. Holy Jesus, that is like way, 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 way better. Snake Overload. Previous lucky hit dealing lightning damage has up to a 40% chance to cause the target to emit static discharge. Now dealing storm damage also applies an additional 20% poisoning damage over 5 seconds. Lucky hit dealing poisoning damage has up to a 1% chance to summon a lightning bolt on the target, dealing 120% damage. I'm not sure why they would start adding all these poisoning storm skills if they're going to take away Toxic Claws. It's kind of weird. Blurred Beast. Previous, while dashing, Shred seeks out nearby poisoned and deals 75% increased damage to them. Now Shred deals 75% more damage, and Shred's first dash lands up to 4 additional strikes based on distance traveled. It was kind of like Zeal. It looked like Zeal almost. Unsatiated. Previous, after killing an enemy with Shred, you gain 20 spirit, and your werewolf skills deal 40 times increased damage when cast above 50 spirit. Now, after critically striking an enemy with Shred, you gain 15 spirit, while at 100 spirit, werewolf skills deal 40 times increased damage until you go below 30 spirit. Virulent changed from utility to offensive aspect. Previously, when rabies infects an enemy, reduces its cooldown. Yeah, it was okay. Now, when rabies infects an enemy, reduces its cooldown by 0.99 seconds, and tripled when infecting elites. You now deal 25 to 50% times increased damage to enemies affected by rabies. Runeworker's Conduit. Now critical strikes with storm skills cause lightning bolts to periodically strike close enemies for 3 seconds, each dealing lightning damage. Your lightning bolt damage is increased by 50% for every 100 willpower you have. That's pretty nice. I like that. Tempest Roar. Change flat damage willpower to +% willpower affix. Mjolnir Ring. While Cataclysm is active, you gain unlimited spirit and deal 40 to 100% increased damage. While Cataclysm is active, now you gain unlimited spirit and deal 40 to 100% increased damage, and Cataclysm receives your lightning bolt benefits. Ooh, nice. Tempering. Removed werewolf attack speed, werewolf critical strike chance, and added damage while fortified. Paragon, Heightened Malice has been changed. While a poisoned enemy is nearby, you deal 35% times increased damage, plus an additional 5% for each additional poisoned enemy up to 4. Oh, that's really nice. So now it no longer is only single targets. I like that. Survival instincts. Previous, while in werebear form, you deal 1% increased damage with 60% dead difference. Yeah. While in werebear form, now you deal 30% times increased damage, or 40% times while you're at full life. If you have 1% increased overpowered damage, up to 25% for every 1% difference in current life percentage. That's a pretty good buff. Ancestral Guidance is basically spend 75 spirit, get 40% increased damage. Now spend 75 spirit, get 40% increased damage, and also your ultimate skills deal 1% increased damage per spirit when cast. Keeper Glyph, increase the non-physical damage bonus from 10 to 15. Territorial Glyph, increase the damage reduction bonus from 10 to 15. Undaunted Glyph, increase the damage reduction while fortified from 10 to 15. Werewolf Glyph, increase werewolf damage from 11.2 to 16.6. Okay. Skills Blight, essence cost reduced from 25 to 20. Enhanced Blight, previous Blight radius was 15, increased by 15%. Now Blight's radius is increased by 15% and directly hitting an elite with it doubles the damage of its defile area. Paranormal Blight chills enemies for 15%. Now it is Blight has a 25% chance to instantly freeze enemies on impact for 3 seconds, and its defiled area also chills enemies for 15% every second. The impact freeze works with smaller projectiles from the Ebb and Piercer unique item as well. Bone Spear increased damage from 85 to 100%. Now Supernatural Bone Spear. Bone Spear makes the first enemy hit vulnerable. Now Bone Spirit makes the first enemy hit vulnerable for 3 seconds and deals 30% increased overpower damage. Paranormal Bone Spear. Bone Spear has a 5% increased critical strike chance. If Bone Spear's primary projectile critically strikes, fires 2 additional shards. Now it has a 5% more critical strike chance. Its main projectile critically strikes. 2 or more bone shards form upon expiration, and you gain 10% maximum essence for 5 seconds. It's pretty nice. Enhanced Sever. Sever now deals its initial damage along its path and slows enemies for 40% for 3 seconds. Kind of 10% buff in damage. Every third cast of Sever makes enemies feared. It makes them vulnerable for 3 seconds, so they threw in some fear in there. Supernatural Sever. Sever now deals the same increased damage for each minion upon cast, but also spawns a corpse at its endpoint. Soul Rift. Every 30 souls consumed refills one of your healing potions with lifeblood of your tortured victims. That's kind of cool. Not bad. New functionality. While soul draining from a boss, Soul Rift will now additionally also drain up to 2 other enemies at the same time. Supreme Soul Rift. Maximum stacks increased from 30 to 100. Damage bonus reduced from 1% to 0.5 per soul. So that's a increase, technically. Maximum damage bonus increased from 30 to 75%. They just made it a little bit harder to get your stacks. Previous enemies with souls ripped out become vulnerable for 2 seconds, damaging enemies. Okay. Now Soul Rift extracts twice the souls from enemies and applies vulnerable to them for 3 seconds. After it ends, all surrounding enemies are feared and slowed by 85% for 5 seconds. Blood Mist, baseline damage increased from 2% to 35%. Ghastly Blood Mist. Previous leaves a corpse behind every 1 second. Now Blood Mist is a mobility skill that grants 30% movement speed. Spawning a corpse every second and applying vulnerable for 5 seconds to enemies it passes through. Dreadful Blood Mist. You now gain 15% critical strike chance and 10% critical strike damage for 5 seconds after Blood Mist ends. Sounds like they're trying to turn it into a damage ability. Bone Prison. Cooldown reduced from 18 to 15 seconds. Enhanced Bone Prison. Enemies within Bone's Prison, when it appears, are made vulnerable and take 15% more damage for 8 seconds. Max cooldown reduction increased from 3 to 5 on Dreadful Bone Prison. Casting Bone Prison grants 40 essence. Trapping a boss now generates another 25 essence. That's kind of cool. Army of the Dead increased from 90 to 120. New functionality. Volatile Skeletal Explosions now stun enemies for 2 seconds. Now has the Summoning Tag. That means it'll get summoning damage bonuses. And a rank 5 bonus. Army of the Dead's damage is increased by 125% of your Skeleton, Mage, and Golem damage bonuses. That seems pretty OP. Blood Wave. The knock wave on Blood Wave is now much more consistent and will sweep enemies farther along its course. Rank 5. Blood Wave's damage is increased by 100% of your damage while healthy and while fortified bonuses. Bone Storm. Rank 5 Bone Storm's damage is increased by 60% of your critical strike damage bonus. The following skill tree upgrades which directly dealt damage will now scale up their damage with increased skill ranks of the base skill. Blighted Corpse Explosion and Enhanced Decompose. Passives, Reaper's Pursuit. Previous, damaging enemies with darkness skills increases your movement speed. Now, for each darkness skill on your skill bar, you gain 2% increased movement speed and 2% more damage. Amplify damage used to give you 4% for hitting a cursed enemy. Now you get 4% increased damage to cursed and feared enemies, and these bonuses can stack. Ooh, that's really nice. Hellbent Commander, while you control at least 7 minions, your minions now deal 10% increased damage. While you control at least 7 minions, gain 10% summoning damage to go along with all the summoning tags. Coalesced, previous, while your healthy blood skills deal 6% increased damage, now you just deal 6% increased damage while healthy. So, they just took away the blood skills. So now it's all damage bonus. Spiked Armor, 40 thorns, 5% additional armor. Now it's going to give you up to 120 thorns and 15% additional armor, and also some block chance, too. Rathma's Vigor now additionally provides 120% overpower damage. Affliction, explosion damage scaling based on your shadow damage over time bonus has been replaced with critical strike damage bonus. Legendary aspects. Numerous legendary aspects from Spiritborn are becoming available to the Necromancer, which support its block archetype. Bristleback, which allows them to apply thorns. Wow. Aspect of Redirected Force, gaining critical strike damage equal to your block chance. Very amazing. Aspect of Layered Wards, your block damage reduction is increased by 10 to 30% while you have a barrier. Title. Bloodwave now fires 2 additional waves, each dealing 240% of the normal damage, but you can no longer recast it until the last wave ends. Gorequill's damage of the Blood Lances spawned from Blood Orbs increased from 60 to 80%. Bloodseekers, previous Blood Lance, 25% increase per lanced enemy. Now Blood Lance increases by the same 25% to its primary target per lanced enemy. While healthy, your Blood Lance deals an additional 40% increased critical strike damage. Cadaverous, consuming a corpse increases the damage of your core and ultimate skills by 7% for 5 seconds up to 30. So they added ultimate. Of the Void, Blight's defiled area now pulls enemies in and has a 50% chance to stun them for 3 seconds when it appears. That's kind of cool. Plunging Darkness, Bone Prison is now a darkness skill and spawns a pool of blight that deals 140% bonus damage over 6 seconds. Okay. So all they did here was they converted Bone Prison into a darkness skill. That's the main thing. And that's actually pretty cool. Unyielding Commander, while Army of the Dead is active, you can increase damage and reduced damage reduction. Increased damage reduction. While Army of the Dead is active, gain 110% summoning damage, so they changed it to summoning damage. Of Great Feast, 45% summoning damage, but each active minion drains 1 essence per second, but if you have no active minions, you gain 45% increased damage instead, and lose 7 essence per second. Again, converted it to summoning damage. Blood Moon Breaches, new affixes, critical strike chance, curse skill ranks, golem mastery, and hellbent commander. Previous, you gain the chance to randomly inflict curses and overpower damage. Now your summoning skills have the same chance to randomly inflict curses, but they took the overpower damage away and gave 50% increased critical strike damage to enemies affected by curses. Looked like a pretty hefty nerf to Blood Moon Breaches. Curses can now be applied from all your summoning skills, not just minion attacks. I mean, that's a little bit of a buff to the ability to spam the curses, but at a 7% chance, it really doesn't happen very often. Well, goodbye, Blood Moon Breaches. Deathless Visage, Bone Spear leaves behind echoes. Now Bone Spear deals 50% more critical strike damage and form echoes that burst for physical damage, increased by 5% for every 25% of your critical strike damage bonus. So a little bit of a buff there to the damage on it. Lidless Wall. What do they do to Lidless Wall? While you have an active Bone Storm, hitting an enemy has up to a 45% chance to spawn a Bone Storm around the location. Each sacrifice bonus increases this chance by 25% and allows you to spawn 1 more Bone Storm. Each active Bone Storm grants 10% critical strike damage. So they added the critical strike damage. Is that pretty much it? Yes. That's it. Wither Legendary Node, increased intelligence cap from 1200 to 2000. A little bit of buff for the Shadow Necromancers. Bloodbath Legendary Node, deal 100% increased overpower damage, so pretty big buff there. After overpowering, you deal 25% increased blood skill damage for 5 seconds. Tempering Profane Cage, defensive temper, removed ranks of spiked armor. Spiked armor can still be found in the Thorn Army recipe. People were actually putting like multiple spiked armors on their characters. Rogues, Twisting Blades, duration increased from 1.5 to 3 seconds and now stacks. Okay. Enhanced Penetrating Shot, chance to shoot an additional arrow when hitting an elite or boss is increased from 25 to 40%. Enhanced Shadow Imbuement, you now gain 15% increased critical strike chance against enemies affected by Shadow Imbuement. It's just, they took away the injured modifier. That's good, it's a buff. Blended Shadow Imbuement, Shadow Imbuement's damage makes enemies vulnerable for 3 seconds. So it no longer has to be the primary explosion, so that's good, and they increase the duration. Blended Cold Imbuement applies to 2 additional imbued skills and reduces their energy cost by 35%. Reducing the energy cost, that's pretty cool. Caltrops, they talked about this one in the campfire. Though it no longer makes you jump backwards. Can now be cast at the target location rather than always at the rogue's feet. Casting animation update to no longer move you backwards. No longer has the mobility skill tag. Death Trap, new functionality. Enemies are pulled into the Death Trap when it activates. Damage increases from 250 to 300. Rank 5 Death Trap has an additional pull-on effect when it appears. Prime Death Trap. Death Trap slows all surrounding enemies by 85% for 5 seconds when it activates. Disciplined Shadow Step, damage increased from 200 to 300%. Shadow Clone is now also considered a summoning skill. Damage from the Shadow Clone is now attributed to the rogue, allowing it to more consistently trigger effects and benefit damage and bonuses. Rain of Arrows. Previous Rain of Arrows rain down over a large area 2 times, each wave dealing damage. Rain of Arrows' first wave knocks down enemies for 3 seconds. Now, arrows immediately rain down over a large area dealing damage and knocking down all enemies hit for 3 seconds. Damage increased from 220 to 450. Delay before arrow impact reduced from 1 to 2.25 seconds. Casting animation has been smoothed out and improved. Lucky hit chance increased from 4 to 12. Rank 5 Rain of Arrows, damage is increased by 100% of your damage to distant bonus. I don't know if I like this change. I like Rain of Arrows. I mean, they took away the double attack so that it doesn't trigger twice. So it used to do 2 large waves, and then you could get a double, so you could get 4 large waves. They took away the double, now it's down to 2 large waves. And now they're taking away the 2 large waves, and now it's just 1 wave. Which sucks. I mean, they increased the damage to compensate for the fact that they took away the additional waves, but the whole, thing about having the additional waves was that it would apply the each one of the imbuements with the Word of a Con, and so you would have multiple waves applying all the imbuements, which would then interact with each other and cause explosions and all sorts of other things like poison puddles and whatnot. And I mean, reducing the total number of waves from 4 to 2 and then reducing it from 2 to 1 is kind of a punch in the wiener. I don't know. I mean, they gave it away to scale damage, I guess, which wasn't ever really a thing with Rain of Arrows, but whatever. Supreme Rain of Arrows. Rain of Arrows now deals 60% increased critical damage to crowd-controlled enemies. Now Rain of Arrows does 60% increased damage to both vulnerable and crowd-controlled enemies. The following skill tree upgrades, which directly dealt damage, will now scale up their damage with increased skill ranks. Methodical Dance of Knives and Subverting Smoke Grenade. Passives, Deadeye, you deal 30% times increased damage to distant enemies. Shadow Crash, shadow damage up to 30% chance to stun for 1.5 seconds, so an increase there from 10 to 30. Precision, stacks required to activate critical strike damage reduced from 4 to 3. Casting Mark skill no longer regenerates an additional stack if the skill critically strikes. Baseline critical strike damage bonus increased from 50 to 65%. Legendary aspects, Aspect of True Sight now goes up to 21 ranks. Bonus damage while inner sight is active increased from 30 to 55%. Aspect of Corruption increased from 45 to 60%. And not against vulnerable enemies, now it's just in general. Aspect of Siphon Victuals, Lucky Hit, damaging a vulnerable enemy has a 25% to drop a healing potion. So I guess basic skills are now added in that. Aspect of Stolen Vigor, time between unstoppable buffs reduced from 8 to 6. Aspect of Cruel Sustenance. Explosions from victimized key passive grant you a barrier for 15% of your maximum life for 5 seconds instead of healing you. Okay. Clandestine Aspect, skill ranks of Agility and Subterfuge skills increase from 3 to 5. Trickster's Aspect, Caltrops and Smoke Grenades receive your stun grenades benefits and throw stun grenades that deal physical damage and stun enemies for 1 second. Now Caltrops, Smoke Grenade, and Death Trap receive your stun grenade benefits and throw stun grenades that deal physical damage and stun enemies for 1 second. Unique items, Grasp of Shadow, affix updates. Lucky hit chance is now critical strike chance. Okay. Power. Now, casting a marksman skill has a cutthroat skill, 50% chance to summon a shadow clone that mimics the skill. Internal cooldown on the summoning of shadow clone reduced from 3 seconds to 1 second. Wow. I didn't even know there was a cooldown. That's pretty stupid. Scoundrel's Leathers, new inherent affix. Your trap and grenade skills are now also considered core skills. Unique effects also grants 20% core skill damage. Internal cooldown on triggering trap reduced from 1 to 0.75 seconds. Word of a Con additionally grants 50% increased damage to distant bonus. Ambush Glyph, damage bonus to trapped enemies increased from 10 to 12. Candy Glyph, non-physical damage bonus stacking limit increased from 10 to 15. Chip Glyph, physical damage bonus increased from 10 to 15. Ranger Rare Node, damage to distant increased from 40 to 80. Dunce Macabre, legendary node increased from 50 to 75%. Eldritch Bounty, legendary node increased from 20 to 30. No Witness, legendary node increased from 10 to 20 and 45 to 60 for the maximum bonus. Tempering, looks like they moved around a lot of stuff. Changed to a utility recipe. Rogue movement, mobility recipe, removed movement speed affix, specialist evolution, stun grenade size affix removed, stun grenade size affix added over in rogue utility. So it's no longer in the offensive section. Agile augments weapon recipe, chance for shadow clone to deal double damage added. Sorcerer. All sorcerers eventually use burning and conjuration builds. The focus behind all these changes is to try and fix the outlying issues and open more build options. As always, we will continue to monitor the effect this has on the sorcerer's power level. Conjurations all now show the max limit on tooltip. Nice. Enhanced Ball Lightning. Previous Ball Lightning's attack rate was increased by your attack speed bonus up to 25%. Now your attack speed is increased by 5% for 3 seconds each time you cast Ball Lightning up to 20. Wizard's Ward Ball Lightning. Previous hitting an enemy 4 times with 1 Ball Lightning spawns a crackling energy. 2 times per cast. Casting Ball Lightning spawns 2 crackling energies. Mage's Ball Lightning. Previous, after hitting close enemies 50 times with Ball Lightning, your next cast stuns for 1 second. Now Ball Lightning deals 30% times increased damage against stunned enemies. Deep Freeze, final explosion damage increased by 25%. And rank 5 bonus, Deep Freeze damage is increased by 40% of your vulnerable damage bonus. Prime Deep Freeze. Previous, when Deep Freeze ends, gain 10% of your maximum life as barrier for 6 seconds. Each enemy you froze while it was active. Now, when Deep Freeze ends, gain 50% of your maximum life as barrier for 8 seconds. Inferno, rank 5. Enemies with Inferno are now vulnerable. Supreme Inferno, while Inferno is active, your pyromancy skills deal 50% increased damage and cost no mana. Unstable Currents, casting Unstable Currents stuns surrounding enemies for 3 seconds. The following skill tree upgrades which directly dealt damage will now scale up their damage with increased skill ranks of the base skill. Enhanced Spark, Enhanced Fireball, and Enhanced Familiar. Enchantments, Firebolt. This was a big nerf to the sorcerers. They changed it from applying burning damage to now dealing burning damage has a 10% chance to heal you for 4% of your maximum life. Flame Shield was changed, now taking 30% of your maximum life with 2 seconds. Activates Flame Shield and can only happen once every 30 seconds. Passives, Devouring Blaze, another big nerf. Your pyromancy skills now deal an additional 10% increased critical strike damage. So it no longer affects non-pyromancy skills. So they just like went, yeah. A lot of characters utilize that for damage on sorceress, and they're like, we know a lot of characters utilizing this that aren't fire characters. So like F you, and they shoved like a rocket up your butthole and exploded it. That's what they did. Shocking Impact now. Every time you stun an enemy or attempt to stun a boss, you deal X lightning damage to them. Inner Flames, you deal 4% increased damage while healthy. Icy Touch, you now deal 4% increased damage to vulnerable enemies. Conjuration Mastery, renamed to Primordial Binding. And previous, you gain stacks for each active conjuration. Now gaining a stacking bonus for each active summon, up to 10 summons, 2% summoning damage, and 2% movement speed, and 4% mana regeneration. The power of Conjuration Mastery in the endgame limits all sorcerer builds to become which build can summon the most conjurations possible. We are looking to redistribute the power boost gained from this passive into other parts of the sorcerer's kit. Enchantments, Splintering Energy, now an extension of Lightning Sphere. Previous critical hits with lightning spear cause lightning to arc from it, etc. Now critical hits with lightning spear will cause the spear to arc again to your target and up to 5 other enemies. This damage is increased by 100% of your critical strike damage bonus. Aspects of tenuous destruction enhanced by 5%. Aspect of tenuous agility. Bonus when not using defensive skills has been increased from double to triple. Aspect of recharging, mana gained per bounce of chain lightning increased from 1 to 5 to 2.5 to 5. So no bonus there if you have the perfect one. Aspect of Searing Wards, previous, after spending 65 mana, your next firewall is free to cast, destroying incoming missiles. Now firewall slows enemies within by 60%. After spending 65 mana, you also get your next firewall free to cast and destroys incoming missiles. And immobilizes anything hit within the initial cast for 3 seconds. Okay. Gravitational, move to utility category. Previous ball lightning orbits around you dealing 30% increased damage. You may have to 10 ball lightnings and more increases in damage by existing ones. The previous version of this affix has been reworked into Okun's Catalyst unique item. So they changed it entirely. So now it's after creating 2 ball lightnings, your next ball lightning implodes, pulling in close enemies before dealing 90% weapon damage in a small area. This damage scales with ball lightning. Sounds really nice. Of Armageddon, previous a hail of meteorites fall, mobilizing enemies. Now a hail of meteorites fall during Inferno, dealing fire damage on impact. Your meteorites immobilize enemies for 3 seconds. While Inferno is active, your meteorites deal 300% increased damage. Unique items, non-physical damage affix replaced with ranks to primordial binding. Paragon, damage reduction from burning enemies has been changed to damage reduction while healthy. Searing Heat Node, previous, your pyromancy skills have a 12% increased critical strike chance and deal direct damage equal to 20% of your damage with fire bonus up to 60%. Now your pyromancy skills have a 12% chance increased critical strike chance and deal damage equal to 10% of your critical strike damage bonus up to 60%. Burning Instinct Node, your burning damage is increased by 20%, so a 10% bonus of your fire bonus, not your critical strike damage bonus, so they swapped them. Up to 90%. So they just swapped the fire over here and the critical strike, or the critical strike over here and the fire over there. Am I not reading that right? Burning your fire. Yeah, fire. This one went from crit to fire, and this one went from fire to crit. Yeah, so they just swapped them. Ceaseless Conduit. While you have crackling energy charges, your skills have deal 10% increased damage. This amount is increased by 4% of your per 20 intelligence you have up to 60. When you reach full charges, your crackling energy damage is increased by 3 times this amount until you run out of charges. I like it. Static Surge, it basically just gives you like a huge amount of damage to all of your skills now instead of just the crackling energy, but also gives a huge amount to the crackling energy. So, Static Surge node, now hitting enemies at least 8 times in a second with shock skills restores 30% of your maximum mana and increases your damage by 40% for 8 seconds. This cannot be refreshed while activated. So big huge boost, like 30% boost on the mana restoration, and then didn't have the damage bonus at all. So that's nice. Fundamental Release, the skill that sounds like a dirtied porno. Every time you apply Vulnerable, Burning, or Critical Strike an enemy, they take 10% increased damage from you, up to 30%. Your ultimate skill damage bonus is increased by 10% of your non-physical damage bonus, up to 40. Conjurer Glyph, 20% Conjuration duration replaced with 15% Conjuration critical hit chance. Tempering Recipes, Ice Blades cast twice removed from Conjuration augments. Infernal double damage removed from Pyromancy augments. Nightmare Dungeons, a new affix has been added to the elemental tokens. While in combat, one of the 3 totems can spawn. Cold, affected monsters slow players and apply vulnerable on hit. Demonic Totem, affected monsters move and attack faster. Spirit Totem, affected monsters revive once when killed. Revived monsters do not grant loot or experience upon being defeated. That's kind of a mistake, because honestly that's just going to like push people to run by them. They really underestimate people's like ability to be like, oh, this monster doesn't give EXP, well then he's not worth killing, and then just like they just run away. Monsters only have the buff while inside the area, and the totems can be destroyed by attacking them, but they slowly lose health over time and are destroyed on their own after 20 seconds. Seasonal Nightmare Dungeon rotation. Okay. I don't really care. It's there, though. If you guys want to look at it, you can go back and do a frame by frame. Incense updates, maximum resistance 2 to 4, 2 to 4, armor increase 200 to 300, core stats increase 25 to 100 across the board. All stats increase from 50 to 60, 15 to 60. Maximum resistance increase from 1 to 2 on soothing spices. Thorns increase from 250 to 400. Maximum life increase from 500 to 750 for Red Amine Buzz. Loot updates. The general chance for an ancestral item to drop has been increased. The general chance for an elixir to drop from Elite Monster has been reduced. The minimum roll for legendary affix on ancestral item is now equal to the maximum roll of non-ancestral items. The acquisition rate of infernal compasses has been adjusted. The chance to acquire one from greater HellTide chests has been increased. The chance for an infernal compass to drop from the following sources has been decreased: Whispers, Nightmare Dungeons, Lesser Helltides, and Chests, and the Pit. A new Whisper Cache has been added. Collections, keys. This will also include 3 Infernal Compasses and 3 Nightmare Dungeon Sigils. The overall drop chance of gem fragments has been reduced. The variance on the roll of unique item powers has been reduced. Additionally, the variance for the strength of the power further reduces with each greater affix present. They talked about this in the campfire chat, and they basically said, like, if you find a 4 greater affix unique item, it's going to have a strong effect on the unique roll of the item. So there's going to be a less chance that you're going to get like a min-rolled 4 greater affix unique, which was probably some of the stupidest things that would happen. I had it happen to me early on in the season. I literally had a Wuxia Nakpa drop, and I was so excited. It was a 4 greater affix Wuxia Nakpa, and it rolled with a 50%, the minimum roll that it could possibly roll, which was just kind of stupid. They're not saying that it's going to guarantee that it's going to be a perfect unique item, but they're going to increase the amount, like the decrease the bottom roll and increase, like, you know, like it won't min roll basically if it has a greater affix, and it won't, like, you know, half roll if it has like 2 or 3 greater affixes or whatever. They're not going to guarantee you a perfect, but it's going to make it so that if you do see a quad greater affix drop, it's not going to be just like a trash minimum roll that you're never going to use, which is kind of cool. Greater crafting Whisper Cache has been adjusted. It's now a normal cache, so it will appear more often. It now contains 4 times as many crafting materials than other caches would drop. No longer contains non-crafting items. Affix items updates. The items that have affixes that are class specific are no longer class restricted. Instead, the specific affix is now class restricted. What? Any affixes that are inactive due to being compatible with your class will be explicitly called out and disabled on the tooltips. Items and affixes that are not usable by your current class will explicitly denote which classes can use them on the tooltip class iconography. The following list details what affixes are now class restricted or have had the classes that they were restricted updated. The majority of these affixes are from class-specific tempering recipes. To acquire them on other classes, the item must be tempered by the class that has access, then transferred. Restricted to barbarians, damage to injured, dual wield, and swapping weapons. Restricted to necromancers, ultimate cooldown reduction, damage while fortified. Blood orbs restore essence. Restricted to rogue, damage to poisoned enemies, lucky hit, chance to daze, bonus maximum life while shroud is active. That's a nice one. It's unfortunate. Restricted to sorcerer, bonus fire, bonus cold, bonus lightning, bonus to frozen enemies, increased freeze duration, damage to mobilized enemies, and lucky hit chance to heal. Restricted to barbarians and necromancers, thorns while fortified. Restricted to barbarians and the sorcerers, bonus crowd control duration. Restricted to barbarians, necromancers, druids, and sorcerers, casting ultimate restores resource. Summons and minions update. All skills that summon entities such as necromancers, minions, druid companions, sorcerer conjurations are now all tagged as summon skills for the consistency across class, including the barbarian's ultimate, which apparently also counts as summoning. Added the summoning skill tag to druid companion skills, sorcerers, conjuration skills, rogue, shadow clone, barbarian call of the ancients, as I just said, in addition to necromancer, ray skeleton, golem, and army of the dead. Units created by these skills are now collectively referred to as summons. All damage from summons is attributed to the player character rather than the summon unit. The updated wording on various effects to use new summons terminology where appropriate. Many effects still interact with only with the class-specific version of these summons. Updated wording on various effects to remove you and your summons, where it is now redundant to specifically call out your summons. Developer's note. Summoning seals have behaved inconsistently across the classes, making it hard to know how to scale their damage or what effects would interact with your summons. This update aims to standardize their interactions across the board by attributing their damage they deal to the player rather than the summoned unit. This means that the damage from your summons will be able to trigger all of your lucky hit effects and interact with all of your damage modifiers, multipliers, and triggers. Note that effects such as the Ring of Mendeln still properly increase their damage output based on the damage bonuses you have for the specific minion type that triggered the effect. Additionally, specific changes for necromancers have been implemented to reflect these changes, which can be seen above in the relevant section. Infernal Hordes compasses have been updated. Compasses now stack based on tier. Maximum count is 99. Old compasses from previous seasons will now become broken compasses, and these compasses can be consumed to generate random compasses. User interface and user experience. The customization screens for both the wardrobe and the stable master have been updated to improve general readability. Comparing lower item power rings to dual wield weapons or dual wield weapons will always compare a default slot instead of selecting one with the lowest item power. All nearby crafting materials will now be collected when picking up a stack from the ground. The description for the hardcore challenges for defeating Dariel, Duriel, and Lilith can now clarify that it refers to the campaign bosses. The tooltip for Yen's Blessing has been updated to clarify that the free casts triggered by the item do not count as if the player casted the skill, which implied other effects should also trigger in this case. That's weird. Okay. They were on like some sort of rant about free casts. Miscellaneous mount can be customized anywhere now. There are now no more mounts that can be bought with gold. Now all mounts can be acquired either as rewards from various activities or through being purchased from the shop. A new option in the training yard has been added to toggle damage variance on and off. Damage variance. Scroll of Amnesia. That's kind of interesting. Scroll of Amnesia will no longer drop any remaining scrolls on characters created in previous seasons. Can easily dispose of them. Gems can now be transmuted into random legendary unique jewelry. Crafting. We can craft. The quest to unlock the class mechanic now only needs to be completed once on the account. Monster density has been increased in the following strongholds: Nostrava, Malnock, Vasierra, Altar of Ruin, Mordrain Lodge, Hope's Light. The Infernal Horde's gold chest now rewards more gold. They kind of nerfed it last season. Completion of the class quest now rewards a cache of legendary loot tailored to the class. That was to get people to do the class quest, even though you don't need to do the class quest anymore if you've already completed. So now you just have like an additional whatever. Accessibility fixed an issue where the screen reader did not read the input field of the Create Clan menu. Infernal Horde Strongholds fixed an issue where progression of Cordragon could be blocked off if vampiric corruptions were killed before the objective updated. Fixed an issue where some enemies could be untargetable if Infernal Hordes would block progression. Gameplay fixed an issue where Whisper Cache rewards were based on the character opening them rather than the character who earned them. Fixed an issue where range crowd control effects could cancel suppressor fields from outside the field. Fixed an issue where the Wild Bolt aspect did not pull in as many enemies as intended in certain scenarios. Fixed an issue where the life per second affixes had a much lower value than intended. Fixed an issue where unique mythic items were more frequently attainable from Purveyor of Curiosities than intended. Okay. Fixed an issue, I never got one, but some people had. Fixed an issue where certain shadow monsters, attacks, and pit bosses encounters had attacks with visuals that did not match the hitbox of the attack. Barbarian. Fixed an issue where Barbarian's Mighty Throw could snapshot bonuses from the initial instance to the rest of the explosions. So now, fix that bug. Fixed an issue where earthquakes were not properly consumed by the seismic lines spawned by Hammer of Ancients when using the Mantle of Mountain's Fury. That's not even in the game yet. What do you mean you fixed it? Fixed an issue where the description for Power Kick did not mention that the upgrade made Kick a core skill. I found that out in like Season 5. Fixed an issue where the Tactical Iron Skin would heal more than intended. Druid fixed an issue where the one with nature damage bonus from applying to the Vine Creeper Druid Companion's active effect. Fixed an issue where Nature Magic Wall Tempering FX did not increase Earthen Bulwark's duration. Fixed an issue where Stone of Yemen was not tradable. Fixed an issue where Shred could dash without Primal Shred upgrade learned. Fixed an issue where the Shred could have visual issues when cast with high amounts of attack speed. Necromancer fixed issue where Affliction key passive did not always deal 2 instances of shadow damage from both Decrepify and Iron Maiden when the aspects of Cursed Aura was equipped. Fixed an issue where the Needle Flare aspect would incorrectly trigger its pulse damage around the Necromancer rather than around the minion when the minion triggered it. Fixed an issue where the Shade Mist aspect could trigger the Ring of Mendel. Fixed an issue where the Abyssal Glyph granted 21% bonus instead of 10. Fixed an issue where the free cast of Blood Artisan Curios scaled off both current and maximum life. Fixed an issue where Soul Rift could overpower when using Blood Boiled Aspect. Fixed an issue where the Blood Orb spawned from Tidal Aspect and Blood Wave could overlap and appear as if Blood Orbs did not spawn. Fixed an issue where Iron Maiden was not being applied by the aspect of Cursed Aura. Oh, interesting. Heathen was right. Fixed a bug where the aspect of Cursed Aura would not gain the 50% bonus from amulets. Fixed an issue where the movement could become difficult if Corpse Tendrils was assigned to the left mouse button. Fixed an issue where Ghastly Bone Prison did not grant additional essence when used on bosses. Rogue fixed multiple instances for tempering affixes for chance to deal double damage, chance to spawn bonus projectiles, and chance to hit twice did not work properly when using Shadow Clone. Fixed an issue where Pit Fighter's Gull was account bound on pickup. Fixed an issue where the affix for bonus maximum life while Dark Shroud is active did not factor in all sources of additional maximum life. Fixed an issue where No Witness Paragon node was activating on ultimate skills which had been cast for free. Fixed an issue where both Critical Strike chance bonuses to vulnerable and crowd control enemies from Trap Mastery could apply at the same time. Fixed an issue where the Shadow Step would incorrectly deal damage to adjacent enemies when it killed a target. Fixed an issue where second wind passive would not trigger if you had infinite resources, such as from Inner Sight. Fixed an issue where Stun Grenade tag on the Dance of Knives was not properly flagged as a search-only tag. Fixed an issue where Enhanced Poison Imbuement would incorrectly increase poisoning duration. I like that. Fixed an issue where... that's too bad they fixed it. Fixed an issue where the Dance of Knives to infinitely cast while using Yen's Blessing. Fixed an issue where Methodical Dash reduced a charge cooldown by 2 seconds instead of 3. Fixed an issue where multiplicative damage to close enemies was not being properly accounted for in the bonus from Close Quarters Combat key passive, such as from Turf and Closer Glyphs. Fixed an issue where the rapid fire projectiles with Scoundrel's Kiss equipped couldn't hit certain stationary enemies, such as Hollow Defilements. Fixed an uncommon issue where the preparation wouldn't reduce your ultimate cooldown skills by the appropriate amount. Fix an issue where Shroud of Caranduras couldn't trigger certain lucky hit effects. Fix a bug causing Ravager's aspect to gain its bonus multiplicatively with itself. Fix an issue where you could get stuck after using Volley Dismount in certain scenarios. Sorcerer fixed an issue where automatic casts of Familiar were not always lightning-based if spawned by unstable currents. Fixed an issue where Sorcerer's Familiar was not triggering the Shocking Impact passive. Fixed an issue where Incinerate's visuals would occasionally be incorrectly sized when using Flamethrower's aspect. And fixed an issue where Meteor would occasionally stop recharging after changing zones while using Starfall Cornet. User interface and user experience. Fixed several instances where some skills, Paragon nodes, and glyphs, legendary effects did not properly appear while using keyword search. Fixed an issue where controller navigation in the Party Finder menu was inconsistent. Fixed an issue where the controller focus would default to required resources instead of the confirm button when enchanting previously enchanted item. Miscellaneous. Fixed an issue where Lord's Ear did not drop Cosra Horns as expected. Fixed an issue where fully equipped challenge only unlocked if all equipped items were of magic quality. Fixed an issue where Smoldering Ashes did not auto-claim as expected. Various stability UI, audio, visual, and performance improvements. I mean, overall, the patch here for the PTR is mostly buffs with some very interesting things. I have to get into the game and actually test out some of these things, but some of the uniques look really good. A lot of these changes look very nice. There are a couple things in here which I would definitely consider to be nerfs. But with a ratio of probably like 98% buffs to like 2% nerfs, the poor Sorceress got hit pretty hard in the winter. Yes, she has a winter. You shush. Don't judge her. There was a couple really weird changes. Like, I really don't like the Toxic Claw changes on the Druid. I'm kind of excited to test out some of these unique items. I hate to say it, but I don't really care about these Eldritch powers. They kind of look stupid. With the exception of maybe some of like the poison ones and whatnot that look kind of neat. Maybe with the addition of the summoning changes and the summoning, like all the stuff being attributed to you, they might scale very well. I don't know. I had to get in and play with the witch powers. They look kind of weird. The witch gems look very generic. They're just basically like damage bonuses, which, I mean, I'm not really sure what I think about the witch gems either. They're okay, I guess. Um, Overall, looks like a good patch. PTR starts on, I think it's December 3rd, so we'll hop in on December 3rd and we'll check out these changes. I'm going to have to put some feedback on it on that Toxic Claw change, though. That Toxic Claw change is atrocious. I really, really don't like that Toxic Claw change. Overall, though, just really good changes across the board, I think. I think it's going to be a pretty big buff for most of the characters. The Spiritborn obviously got nerfed really hard, but that was, we all knew that was coming. You know, Spiritborn was super bugged, and Spiritborn's not going to be clearing pit 150s anymore in 3 minutes. That's not happening. I'd be surprised if the Spiritborn is clearing pit 120s at this point. So, you know, we'll see. You can obviously, with the new like character copy, you can copy over your character to the PTR, and you're going to be able to just like take your pit 150 Spiritborn, copy it straight over, and check it. And I guarantee you, he's not going to be clearing 150 pits no more. They fixed basically all of the bugs that people were using. The Spiritborn is going to be right back down to earth with all the other classes, which is honestly where it should have been to begin with. I mean, it was a fun season of playing a bugged, broken character, but you know, like it's a bugged, broken character. Let's move on. It was fun for a little bit, and then it just felt like cheat codes, and I think we all realized that it was just too powerful, and we needed to like come back down to reality. I don't really think there's that much more to say about the patch, especially since we need to get in and actually test this stuff out. Wuxie Knockpod looks absolutely insane. The new unique quarterstaff they're adding for the Spiritborn looks absolutely insane. They got a lot of really nice buffs for the Spiritborn as well. Really excited about a poison build for the Spiritborn. There's also some really cool new runes, which I'm excited about. The lightning rune looks really cool. A lot of the overflow stuff looks really neat. So I'm actually excited to go play with that stuff as well, which we'll dive into on the 3rd. That earthquake build looks really cool on the barbarian. Talking about the one that allows you to like explode the earthquakes. That does sound really neat. This sounds really cool. I might be playing around with that. The hurricane causes, on your wolves. That looks really neat. I'm actually kind of excited to play with that. I don't know. Maybe even make a summon necromancer on season 7. We'll see. We'll see. Anyway, as always, I'd appreciate you guys and gals joining me for these patch notes. I know these patch notes are a little long, an hour and 42 minutes. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe button if you enjoy the content. And as always, keep watching.